Right, we'll get started on this. So welcome everyone. I know it's great fun coming out on a Saturday to talk about SAP and stuff. So I want to talk about 1 million variations from one product in SAP. So what we're really talking about, I'll just give the business context first. This isn't a techo system. This is really pretty much just looking at the business context and what I'm talking about. So generally, our manufacturers are making hundreds, thousands of boxes of cornflakes or headphones, whatever it is. And typically they're making these huge quantities and sending them off to one customer. So 5,000 boxes of something to one customer. What's happening more and more so is that you've got mail, you've gone online and ordered something. It's going to end up in your letterbox, hopefully. And so we're really talking about one-to-one. So we're talking about companies that are some of them are actually quite large, who are actually getting down to the individual buyer. So quite a different thing. And more, if you watch SAP over the last few years, it's really heading that way. So I want to talk about an easy one first. And before I start that, so this topic, I'm going to be talking about SAP Variant Configuration. So put up your hands if you've heard of it. Okay, so there's a bit of a mixture. So as we run through this, it will explain what it is without me boring you, telling you what it is, I think. So let's take an example. This is a headphone manufacturer. So this is off their website. So you can go on there and you can order the headphones to look exactly how you want. So we've got 5 options that we're working through and 22 colours on every option. So as we work through it, the combinations that you can potentially order are increasing and increasing. So 22 times 22 times 22 times 22. So in this case, by the time when we do get to the end, which we're nearly there, we are at over 5 million possible combinations just to order the set of headphones. Okay? So in SAP, if you took the old, you've got to see this. So you can do that online. It does it online. It lets you select them and put your head on it. So, but as we can see, that's over 5 million combinations. So obviously, if you know a bit about logistics, production planning, you normally have bombs and routings to represent the product you're making. So we don't want to have 5 million of those because the chances of anyone ordering one of those combinations is probably quite small. So you have this massive data overload. But this is the easy one. And just some background, I went to a conference in Europe or the US where Bose presented this basically. They've got SAP in the back end of this. And their biggest challenge with going to this in the market was they're used to sending thousands of boxes to one customer. And logistically, to move to that, put it in the post, is actually that was their biggest challenge. So just to give you just a quick infographic on that, the global headphone market is 368 million units per year. Bose themselves are about a $4 billion company, privately owned, employ about 9,000 people, operate in about 30 countries. So just gives you an idea of the scope. And so they're trying to target someone like me. Now the hard one. And again, this is from a company in Melbourne that I do some work at, A&L Windows. So what they essentially are selling is needing to restrict what is possible. So with those, we had 5 million combinations, all of them are valid. When you get into other manufactured products, some things are not valid because you've selected this and that. So I think you get that idea. So at A&L Windows, we basically what they sell is something to put into a hole in the wall. So we've got a hole in the wall like that. The window could look like that, could look like that, that, for example. And they've got many different size combinations as well. So I'd hate to think how many combinations that they do have, but that's where VC comes into it, if you like. So the best way to explain VC is to see it online, or to see it. I've got a recording here. Okay, this will just play through. So those who know a bit about SAP, we're just using material determination to pick up a model. So the material at the top, WDALU_WA, is the material master that we're using in SAP to handle all these variations. So this is just showing what it would look like to go through and configure up a window, and this is what they do basically. So you can see we've got lots of tabs, lots of buttons, lots of characteristics that have to be set. So, and on the left-hand side, we will actually see the bomb explosion as well. So this, these models are quite complex. Like you think doing a window is dead simple, really. It's just aluminium and some glass, but in practice it blows my mind. You know, I went onto this project to architect up a solution for it, and I just never got to leave again, really. So I've sort of hung around with this company for quite a while. But what it means is we can configure hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of different variations with one material master, and we dynamically create the BOM and the routing and the pricing. All sorts of stuff hangs off this. So that's what it looks like in ECC 6 and basically in S4HANA, and a lot of this stuff can be taken to the web as well. There's functionality that SAP have to do something similar to what Bose have done with their headphones. So how do we do this? This whole solution, it's actually standard SAP. There's not too much smoke and mirrors once you know how it works. And essentially what we're doing is making the static things like material masters and BOMs and routings dynamic. So that we can essentially start with materials, and there's a little tick box that we can use that makes them configurable. So putting on that tick box plus hooking up a few other bits and pieces means any material in SAP, if it's in system config supports it, can be configurable. We still have bills of materials, but we have what we call super bills of materials. So when we build the BOM structure, it has to cater for, say, the 5 million combinations, okay? And then that has to be filtered down to the exact components that will make up the thing that we want to make. And the same deal with routings. So routings is like work centers. You know, we've got to make this here, this part here, assemble there, paint here, whatever. So again, we have to cater for all the possible variations. So that's why it's called a super routing. It has everything in it. And there's some pretty cool modelling tools that let us make it not as horrendous as that might sound. But so underpinning VC is classes and characteristics, which some of you may be familiar with in other areas of SAP. So this is really, a class is like a container. We throw characteristics in it which describe all the options that we're choosing, you know, the window size, the window type, whatever. We need a configuration profile attached to that material, and all that does, it's a holder for some of our object dependencies. So this is like code, not ABAP. I'll talk about that later. And also how we want our configurable material to behave. Because sometimes some models, we still need manual intervention, more of an engineer to order scenario, for example. And so we have a couple of object dependency types that we use up there. Constraints, which is pretty much about filtering stuff and a lot of other clever stuff. Procedures is about setting stuff. And then in our super bill of materials, we have rules around selecting components and rules around procedures to, say, set a quantity or something like that. And routings, it's the same deal. The other tool we have is variant tables. So variant tables it's not an ABAP data dictionary table. It's a table that we create using characteristics in SAP. So really, the beautiful thing about VC is it's not an ABAP thing. It's actually a user thing. And the power of that is huge when you look at what is possible. So it is a master data solution. It's not a techo solution. You know, people in the business that create these models, often they're not programmers, they're R&D people and things like that. So as I said, it's not ABAP code, and that is a good thing. You know, I know there's programmers out there, but you know, when you've got engineers and stuff who want to do something, like ABAP code you know, you've got to be involved in transports and all sorts of stuff. This is master data. We can ALE it, we can push it around. So that's why it's so good. Because it belongs in the business, not with the techies. No disrespect to the techies that are here. So I call it object programming with real objects. So we're hooking these object dependencies to a material or to something in a routing or to something in a BOM. So to me, they're real objects. You know, that's the way I view it. Just to give you some very quick idea. So this is the modelling tool that's in SAP that our modelers use. So this is an example of from the window company as well, but it's just a simple product that just orders some angles and profiles, bits of aluminium basically. But you can get an idea of the structure. Like everything's an object, so it looks confusing, but there's things in there that are procedures and tables, and you can see the routings and BOMs. I haven't got a pointer, sorry. But that is our central modelling tool, and we can just about do everything off that. Over to the right, there's just a sample of a piece of code that goes and looks to determine valid colours from a table. So these are the variant tables we talked about. So it's nothing like ABAP, I think you'll agree. So once people get their head around joining all this stuff together, and a lot of it does come out in how you design the structure on the left, it's relatively straightforward for people to use. So I'm going pretty good with time, I think. What time am I finishing, Elliot? Yeah, so I might be running a bit ahead of time, so that's fine. So the surprising thing with this functionality is people don't realise how pervasive it is. It starts in sales typically from someone ordering something, and it just goes right through the system really. If you're using at the company I'm currently at, it goes into production planning. Obviously, we automatically schedule the production orders in our design. Goes into materials management. We feed VC characteristics into materials management, so we can order custom glass off a third-party supplier, for example. So we use characteristics there. If you had quality management, there's some integration there. Service management, there's some integration there we don't use. Project systems, that's a really cool integration. There's a company, one of the housing companies in Melbourne, integrate VC with project systems in SAP. And the cool thing about that, instead of when you're making something, you have a routing that says what work centres things are going to be made on. And you get all your timing that way. With the integration to project systems, it's quite different. You don't have the routing, but you've got a project. So what it does is, if you look at a house, for example, when they want to schedule the pouring of the slab, for example, that will, all the components and whatever they need to do that gets pushed to that network in project systems. And so the whole house gets scheduled directly into project systems automatically, as an example. Some integration to document management in SAP, finance, a lot of integration. We've got Jim from A&L's who could probably tell you about some of the interesting aspects of the financial integration of this stuff, because it's make to order, not make to stock, so it has its own financial things. And then not to mention the C4C integration. So a lot of companies are looking at, if they don't already do so, taking VC models to the web and plugging it through C4C. Others will take it to maybe another third-party product. So there's a few of those around the world. Bose, I'm not sure what they're using, but that's sort of the future, I think, is where things are going. I'll just cut back to myself at the end here. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, VC's sort of been my hidden obsession for quite a few years since I ever saw it. So that's been around since 1995-ish, maybe a bit before. So it's not new. Used heavily in the US and in Europe, not so much in Australia, which is a shame. But over the years, I've travelled to conferences that are just on VC in Europe and the US for quite a few years, and went in very green. Hopefully now come out a bit more grey and matured, but knowledgeable. But one of the gaps was in training for VC. SAP have their training courses, and I've delivered those about 4 or 5 times. Very good in the breadth of content, but not quite as good as really getting the business context, I suppose, to how you should approach and develop VC. So I developed an online training course. You can always go to radiantthink.com and see some stuff on that. But in Australia, I've been involved with A&L Windows on VC. Codan and Adelaide have it for ordering RF radios and stuff. Porter Davis Homes have it, for example. And there's a few other companies within Australia, but not a lot. So hopefully that was interesting to some of you, maybe new information for others. So I am about at the end of what I need to talk about. So if you've got any questions, fire away.
What's the performance nowadays of VC with really large models? Because back in 2007 or so, I was on a project and the recommendation was not to use it because it was like millions and millions and lots of variations.
So the question was about performance of VC. So large models are difficult, and SAP are developing an advanced configurator in S4HANA, which will run faster. Which will run faster. It's still not as functionally rich yet, and it's also additional license. So that's one way they're addressing it. From a practical point of view, the way you approach your modelling has a huge impact. And we're actually going through some of this performance improvement at the moment, and the modelling style has a huge impact. But yeah, that can be an issue on some big models. Yeah. I'm all done.
What was that question, Phil? You want to just repeat the question,
Yeah. So the question was around performance with VC, because obviously it's doing a lot of processing, and in large models it can be an issue. And I was just saying there's approaches in modelling that can alleviate some of that, but it can be a tricky thing to get it down to acceptable levels sometimes. But having said that, the downstream benefits are huge. Like, it might take longer at the front end of sales, but the time you save further down the process can be huge. So it's sort of you can take a holistic view as well.
Do you want to cover also the changes that you see with the S4 HANA coming in, and what the trends are and what you see in that space?
Yeah, so it's very boomy. So like I say, in S4HANA, the demo I showed you is exactly the same as what it would be in S4HANA. So there's no migration path for VC as such going to S4HANA. SAP are developing a new configurator which works on the same principles, but they've got universities and they're using open source constraint-based modelling engines and all sorts of things. And it's just about at the point where it is usable in companies. It's taken them a little while to get it up, but they're using customers to develop that new product. So there's a customer innovation group that meets twice a year, I think, in Europe, and they have design sessions and everything. So, and then the reporting in S4HANA will be a lot better. You'll be able to report on the characteristics, which in ECC6 you can't do easily. So, so the future looks bright. I think it will just get stronger for VC, but it's a niche market. So that's sort of where it's heading at the moment. So if you guys are interested, I'll be, I'm starting a live streaming with a guy in the US, and we're going to talk all things VC. He's used it for 20, 30 years, and he's been involved with SAP on the new product, and he's just retired, so we're going to do some streaming and discussion. So I'll put out some links somewhere once we get that up and running, which is next month. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry?
So how can you publish the selection to the internet or the portal?
Yeah.
So my question is, how can you publish this selection to the internet or the company portal and let your customer to select from the internet?
Yeah.
So any solution for this?
Yeah. So this one didn't. No. Yeah. So like I say, SAP have functionality to integrate. So essentially, the models have to be exported out basically in a Java type container, and then so that encapsulates all the rules away from SAP, so it can be taken to the web, and people like who are probably here who are front end UI type people or C for C can then make it available through that functionality. So yeah, so that's all possible.
So my question will be on the same base. If we have such kind of functionality which is available for internet and all these things, do we have this thing to be published on Web IDE as well, or only this is existing right now on SAP GUI? How things are like?
Yeah. So they say the next step is you can create this Java container. It's called a knowledge base.
Yeah. So it will be working on Kubernetes and Docker sort of thing, or will this?
Don't talk techo stuff with me. I just
Okay. Sorry.
No. So no, I'm not a techie in that sense, but basically it exposes the model, and you can attach images or whatever and do all the stuff that you need to do.
Right now it is not available, but we are working towards it.
No.
It is available?
It's been around, yeah. SAP have had sort of earlier versions of that sort of thing, but I think probably these guys might be able to give a better answer or not. I don't know. Put you on the spot. But yeah.
Thanks.
But it'd be interesting to have a discussion, I think. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Did you want to tell everybody about, are you going to any of the conferences this year, Phil? I know you go every year.
Yeah, so I've got one in Hamburg in late April, and then there will be one in the US somewhere around October. So yeah, I normally try and get to them, and yeah, they're very valuable. So I normally get the prize for travelling the furthest to get there. So yeah.
Did you also want to touch on, I'm not sure whether we show it either, but the questions around the configuration options? I'm at AML Windows working with Phil as well on an e-commerce solution at the moment, which is really interesting. And while we're not doing VC sort of over the net, we are using a lot of the different aspects of the configuration. So not sure, Phil, if you want to just quickly, you've got a bit of time, I think, still, whether you wanted to cover just the experience that's been, because that's been quite
yeah. Well,
different and tricky, right?
Yeah, well, we can probably both give perspective. So, yeah, AML Windows they wanted to take some of their VC to the web, but not in the standard sense, if you like. So we've been working with Phil to sort of replicate VC on ordering fly screens for Windows, basically. So I found it really, really interesting working through that process, because it gives another way of how VC is used. You see all the neat stuff that can be done at the front end through cloud services and all sorts of things that these guys have done for us. So it's really, the user experience is really, really good. You bringing one up?
I just thought we'd show you part of the e-commerce solution. We are nearly live, but what it enables you to do is people put in their address. This is a test system, by the way. But what it does is actually, and you could probably explain this too, Phil.
Yeah.
We basically find the person's address, and then we go through and basically select sort of options on Windows and so forth.
Yeah. So this is really quite tricky. So basically what they've done is sucked out all the addresses we ever delivered to Windows. They've sucked it out, brought it up into HANA database.
Yeah, we're just using an data service to interrogate the back end.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite tricky, but we are reading some of that configuration in the back end. We're not doing the configuration in the application itself, because that wouldn't be good, but we're referencing a lot of those different configuration items. So you can see that we've got the windows and doors, and then the customer would basically go through a selection process. All these different types of options, we have the back-end table to basically work out all the different combinations that are possible.
Yeah.
And
so these are all characteristics in the back end that they're pulling out, and when they post the thing at the end, it's populating through an IDOC all the VC characteristics.
I think the key thing is with this is, variant config is really difficult. Moving all that to the cloud and trying to do the same thing doesn't make that much sense. But trying to reference it in a way that you're reading the data and presenting it with a great user experience is the key, I think. And yeah, I'm a little bit biased, but I've loved this project. It's had some challenges technically and so forth, but what we've delivered, I think, is really cool stuff. So one of these, there's two solutions for this. One's spare parts, this is screens, and this is probably another month away from go live. But just to show you what possibilities there are.
Yeah, but and this was a project where, when I first heard about the business wanting to do it, I thought,
there's a lot of
not sure how this is going
to do that.
It was. I think it's one of those projects where you've got to run with it and work through the stages of it, I think, is what we found.
I think the key thing is too, as well, we didn't want to duplicate all of the VC stuff in another area. So it's working out a way to actually reference all the great stuff in ERP and use that.
Yeah. So I suppose it's an interesting interaction. So obviously we're a customer of Phil's or whatever, but it's just working through the integration points. So he would use my knowledge, I'd use his knowledge, and we'd work out the path through, and it worked quite well in the end. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You have said that it is an e-commerce thing, what we are doing right now. So have you used something like Hybris in background, or you have just used OData and
Yeah, no, it's not standard SAP
Oh, okay.
what we've done.
Okay,
No.
cool.
Yep. Okay, no, thank you everyone.